My name is John Morgan, and I want to welcome you to the trial version Getting Started presentation here at 2020. This session is specifically geared towards you, someone who has interest in using software to design kitchens, baths, closets, spaces inside of a home. And you've been looking at our software. So you have gone to the website, you've downloaded the trial version, you've loaded it on your computer, and you are up and running and starting to play around with it, and you have some questions. That's what this session is meant for. So to get started, let me give you a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. First of all, we're going to talk about help. I'm going to show you how you can get answers 24/7. It's a really cool system we have set up. I think you're really going to like it. We're also going to take some time to talk about cloud catalogs and the benefit to you and how you find them, where you log in, and so forth. We'll spend some time on best practices when it comes to drawing walls, placing cabinets, being able to show the cost on the kitchen or the bath or such. And I do want to take a moment as well to talk a little bit about closets. We have many of our users are adding the closet pack, and as you start to download the most recent trial versions, you'll be able to use the closet pack too. I'm going to give you an idea of what you're going to get if you purchase the closet pack. Then we'll finish with some of our rendering techniques when it comes to lighting, how do you present, and then finally the 360 and virtual reality. Now, let's switch over to 2020 Live. Let me do a quick overview of our interface. You'll see on our screen that we have a graph paper, a piece of graph paper with a floor plan, and then I have a section with an elevation. Matter of fact, I have 3 elevations open at the top. I typically minimize this, so I'm going to move this up here to the top. That way I can have as large a plan as possible, and I'll talk a little bit about how these plans work in just a moment. So if you take a look at your screen, you have what I consider 4 main areas. You have this massive space here in the middle. This is your design space. This is your graph paper where you're going to draw. You'll see that you have a kitchen. You can use your mouse simply by pointing to something. You can use the wheel on your mouse, and if you roll it forward, you will zoom in. If you roll the wheel back, you zoom back out again. On the left-hand side of the screen, you have 3 main features. These are boxes, information, placement, and drag and drop. Information will give you dimensions as you work. Placement will tell you where items are placed on a plan. So for instance, information will give you directions and general dimensions. Placement will give you dimensions on a particular object, whatever you are moving at that moment. And then drag and drop, that's where you'll find many of your catalogs. If you took a look at my system right now, I probably have 60, 70, 80 manufacturer-specific catalogs on my computer. I work with lots of different designs and different conferences, so I have lots of data and content on mine. But this is where you would find your basic items. So you would come over here like sample F is a generic cabinet catalog. I could go through and place wall cabinets, base cabinets, tall cabinets. If you were selling brand manufacturer Y, let's pretend that brand manufacturer Y is a brand-specific cabinet catalog, you would also find those catalogs listed here too. Now, many of the catalogs you're going to notice have moved to an area to the right-hand side of the screen, which is called Cloud. You'll see over here it has decor, for instance, and if I open this up, you'll see that I have AGA and Vanity and BSH and Electrolux and Elmira Stoveworks and Faber Range Hoods and GE and Healthcraft and Jenner and Kohler and Liebherr and Maytag. You'll see it's a whole slew of either appliance companies or accessory type items. Now, what's the difference between these two when you're working? Let me explain that for a minute. The drag and drop menu is a list of catalogs that are currently on your computer. They're currently on your hard drive. So you download those. Catalogs in 2020 Cloud are actually delivered to you through a cloud mechanism. And what's nice about that is you never have to download anything. Anytime you want, as you're working, if you go over here, you can work with any of these brands and you have the most up-to-date catalog available because they're automatically publishing those catalogs to you. Over time, let's say 6 months, 9 months, a year and a half or so, you're going to find that the rest of the catalogs over here, your cabinet manufacturer's catalogs will also migrate to the cloud so that Anytime you turn your 2020 on, you'll automatically have the most up-to-date catalogs from your manufacturers. And those catalogs are also at a higher resolution as well for better graphics. So that'll happen automatically for you as you're working. So a huge, huge benefit to the cloud. So I wanted to explain that because I get a lot of questions. People say, I see cloud. What does that mean? It's where your data is. It's being driven from your manufacturers. It's always up to date, and it has a higher level of resolution. So I would look there first for data when you start to work. Now, at the top of your screen, you have a ribbon system. You'll notice that I'm already on the View tab. Let me explain the tabs real quick. This works like any other Windows program, whether it's Microsoft Excel or PowerPoint or Word or such. If you click on File, this is where you'd find items like Save, Save As, Print and Export and such. Go to Home. This is where you'd find your favorite Windows features, Undo, Redo, Select, Cut, Copy, and Paste, and so forth. Room Layout. This is where you'd find your windows, walls, and doors. Items is an area where you could go to get appliances, accessories, countertops, lighting wizards. Annotations is where we would choose our dimensions and any notes we want to add extra to the screen. Now, 2020 will automatically dimension the room, okay? It'll automatically do that for you, but you can always add your own dimensions to that. Presentation is probably my favorite tab because this is the tab that you would go to when you wanted to show something to your client. You wanted to present to them. You wanted to use a perspective, top view, front view, or even give them a quote by going to reports. All of that's in presentation. The View tab. Now, this is really important. I actually don't use the View tab very often myself. This is really a setup screen or how you set your 2020 interface up. But let me show you something really, really important here. If you look here on the left, remember I mentioned that you have information, placement, and the drag and drop box. And I also said that those are three really important boxes as you work. Well, each one of those has a little X on the right-hand side, and it's not unusual for somebody to leave this area and click on the X, closing it, thinking they don't need it anymore. You really don't want to close these boxes. Leave these boxes open. And I'm going to ask you to write something down. I'm going to give you a list of things today to write down, but this is the first thing I'm going to ask you to write down. Here's what I want you to write down. If you ever close one of these boxes, okay, if you ever close one of these three boxes, the way you reopen them is you go to View, and you either click on Drag and Drop, Information, or Placement. You'll see they're highlighted in light orange right now. Whichever one of these three is not highlighted, you would click on it, and it would reappear again, and it would stay there. It would stay there until, you open the new program again, until you closed it again. It'll always, always stay there on the screen. It becomes a default. So if you ever close one of these, go to View and simply click on either Drag and Drop, Information, or Placement, and that'll return it to its original setting. Okay, awesome. Now, the Help tab. Here's something else I want you to write down. Let's say that tonight you're working 10 o'clock at night and you're looking at this countertop and you want to put a countertop in and you want to make these little bump outs here, let's say around the legs and so forth, and you're not sure how to modify the countertop. Don't worry about it. If you go to Help, there's a feature right here called Watch Training Videos. When you click on Watch Training Videos, it'll actually open up the training videos in 2020. This will take you right to our e-learning level, our 101 level e-learning, and it'll start off with introductory video. And if you came over here to the right-hand side where it says Table of Contents, you could click on Subject. For instance, I wanted to know about countertops. I could click on Countertop. I could click on Modify Countertop. And a little 4-minute and 42-second video will start to play. And if I jump ahead here, it'll actually start talking about how do you modify countertops, how do you make changes to it. So you could literally be there at 10 o'clock at night, just click on countertops, and in 4 minutes and 42 seconds, know how to make all the edits that you need to on your countertop. Pretty cool. Pretty easy to do. So again, how did we access that? Here's what I wanted you to write down. We access that by going to Help and clicking on Watch Training Videos. So that's a great way to learn. Matter of fact, I would recommend that as you start to learn 2020, that you Play around a little bit, maybe draw your own kitchen. Maybe it's a job you're working on right now. Play around with it, and anytime you get stuck, just go to help and click on watch training videos, because you'll find that most of the features are pretty intuitive. It's pretty easy to pick up. It's exactly where you would expect them to be. But anytime you have a little bit of a delay, just click on watch training videos, click on the subject. It'll keep you moving pretty rapidly. I think you'll find that you can learn the software pretty quickly. Now, we do offer lots of webinars like this. We have lots of webinars actually posted on our website, where you can go and see webinars that are specific to, let's say, higher-end renderings or top 10 tips and tricks and things like that. But that is the fastest way, I think, to learn the software. Now, we've gone through and we've talked about the interface. Let's actually come out of here and let's talk a little bit about how we would start from scratch. Before I do that, though, I do want to show you one more thing. I want you to notice something that I do in my renderings. I actually have a rendering open of the kitchen that we're currently looking at. This kitchen is not a kitchen I designed. This is a kitchen designed by a friend of ours of 2020, Anthony Johnson. He's a kitchen designer in Virginia, not too far from where I live, actually, but he's a kitchen designer from Virginia. And when we're working, or when I'm working, one of the things you'll notice is that I always have my renderings open, because I always want to see the changes and the updates to the room live. And this is something I want you to keep in mind. You know, you're looking at 2020 because, again, you're trying to save time, right? You're trying to reduce your errors, and you're trying to come up with these great renderings that are going to help you close more sales. A lot of you have closing rooms where you have a large TV screen on the wall, and your client may be looking at gorgeous renderings like this. One of the cool things about 2020, especially in our industry, you know, we're the software that really understands how to utilize those screens. So when you're working, you can make changes on the floor plan, but you can have that perspective on the closing room monitor, and the client can see all of those changes live. I'm going to give you an example of that in just a minute, but I want to give you an idea of how I work. I typically have my perspective open at all times. Now, let's switch back over here. So let's go back over to View, and let's switch over to a blank piece of paper. And I'm going to give you some best practices as if we started from scratch. All right, first thing that's going to happen when you're working, you're going to have a piece of graph paper. Oftentimes what I do is I roll the wheel back just a little bit to give myself a little bit larger workspace. But let's talk a little bit about the best way to draw walls. The best way, in my opinion, to draw walls is to go to Room Layout and to click on the feature called Continuous. Continuous will give you a solid line. And if I click on that and I click down here and I move up, you will see that I have a wall, and over here we have length. There's the length of my wall. Now here's the trick that I use for drawing walls. If I move up, where it reads length, I will let go of the mouse and I will type in 144. That's the length of my wall. I'll hit enter. If I want my next wall to go to the right, I just point to the right, 156, enter. If I want my third wall to move up, I point up and I'll say it's going to be 75 inches. Next wall across is going to be 101.75 inches. You could type in decimals. You could also type in fractions. For instance, I could come down here, 91 space 7/8. Okay, hit enter, and it'll actually give me a wall that's 91 7/8. We could come back across here, and we could say this is going to be 92 inches, and then we'll go up on an angle. And again, here's what I'm doing. I'm using the mouse. You'll notice the wall follows me whatever direction I'm moving. I simply use the mouse. I point on an angle, 45 degrees, or 45 inches, I should say. There's my wall. Now, let's say that you stopped by accident. If you right-click on the wall and you go into the Edit Wall Shape feature, you can always just right-click on the last point and say Add and keep right on drawing. For instance, I might have wanted another 45-inch wall. There's my wall. I want to place this one on an angle, 45 inches. And you'll see that I can continue to draw any direction that I need just by pointing and typing. Now, once you get the point and type method down, the very first question that I typically get, is, how do you edit a wall? Let's say you make a mistake. you have typed the number in incorrectly in 2020. Or, which happens all the time, somebody else has gone out and field measured the room. They bring you back dimensions. You drew an entire design, and then you go back out to the field and you do a final measure and find out they gave you the wrong dimensions. No problem. I can change that at any point. Matter of fact, when I go to change these walls, what you'll really notice here is that all edits, I shouldn't say all edits, almost any edit in 2020 is going to work the same way. And basically anything on this floor plan, if you simply point to it and double click, you can edit it. So if I double clicked on that wall right now reads 156 inches. Maybe I typed an incorrect dimension in. I want to type in 165. We'll go ahead and we'll click apply. That wall is now 165 inches. So I can go through and make changes that rapidly. Now I can click on wall 3, wall 4, wall 6. I can click on any wall and you'll see the green line indicates which wall I'm on, and I can make those changes. A lot of times when you're working in software, especially CAD, you have to click on just one item at a time. I can click on any of these at any time in this list and make a quick change. Again, it's about speed, because the best thing we can actually do for your business is save you time. That's the most valuable thing you have. So that's about speed and making changes. I can not only change the length, I can change the height and even the top alignment of where the wall cabinet's going to go. Now, let's delete this kitchen. I want to start over. I'm going to make a little bit larger room here. So we're going to come down here. I'm going to click on continuous. Again, remember, I click on the floor plan. Whatever direction I move with my mouse is the direction the wall will follow. So I'm going to point up and I'm going to type in 290 inches by 310 inches by 290 inches by 310 inches. And all I'm going to do is make a big old rectangle here. I'm going to double click on it so it centers it. Now, here's why I did that. I want to have a big open space so that you can see how easy it is to place items and make changes and so forth. So if we come through here, so we'll see right here, there's my plan. Remember earlier I told you the very first thing that I do when I create a floor plan is I create a rendering as well. If you go to the top where it says perspective, a rendering will open up. And by the way, all the features that you see in that very top bar, that's what we call the quick access toolbar. Those are the features that you're going to use most often, so you don't have to go through the ribbons to find them. They're always at the top of your screen, and you can add and delete from that list too. So you'll see here is my kitchen. I can rotate it left and right by holding the left-hand button down. I can look up through the bottom of it. I can look down through the ceiling, and I can roll the wheel forward and actually walk into the room. I'm now standing in the room, and you'll see it'll start to render this room. As you watch renderings, you might notice that it looks, I don't want to say a little fuzzy, but it's not as detailed when it first starts. What happens is when we start to render and you move, everything's in draft mode to begin with, but when you stop, it goes back and it re-renders it 3 to 5 times so that it puts in indirect lighting, direct lighting, it straightens out all the lines and so forth, and that's what really makes it photorealistic. So if you give it a little bit of time, it'll go from a draft mode to photorealism on its own. So here's your plan. Let me come back out of here. Let's go back to the actual floor plan itself. Here's my room. After you've drawn walls, typically the very first thing you're going to do is put windows and doors in. Windows and doors are found right here next to walls. Now there's a whole menu of openings and obstacles or windows and doors, but I'm going to today just use the basic one, which is a quick one. I want to save some time because we only have about 45 minutes or so together, so I don't want to waste a lot of time going through all the different menus, but there are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of windows. If you click where you want that window to go, it'll give you a preview of the window. There's my window. Over here, it'll ask you for the height of the window, 42 inches. I'll go ahead and I'll click OK. Now, here's the important part. Remember, I told you earlier that I'm going to ask you from time to time to write some things down, okay? So from time to time, we're going to look over here to placement zoning. You'll see center, width, left, and right. Notice as I move my window up and down, those numbers change. Here's what I like to do. I am much, much more accurate typing dimensions than I am using the mouse. So I'm going to type these dimensions in. You'll see where it says center, it says 225 and 16th of an inch. Well, I don't know the center line dimension in my case. I know a left dimension and I know a width of the window. Here's how I navigate that screen. On your keyboard, and again, something you want to write down. On your keyboard, there's a key all the way on the left-hand side called Tab, T-A-B. If I click on Tab, it'll take me down to my width. Right now, my width is 30 inches. I want my width to be 42, so I'll type in 42. If I hit the Tab key again, it takes me down the left. Now, what I want you to notice is every time I click the Tab key, and I'm clicking it over and over again, it simply takes me through the field. Takes me through, it toggles through until we get to left. So when I get to left, I know that the left dimension on this window is going to be 192.5. So I typed in a width, I typed in a left. When I hit enter, it will place the window automatically. And if I zoom in, you'll see it, I'm 192.5. If I scroll up, I have 42-inch window trim to trim. And on the right-hand side, it's 55.5 inches to the wall. Now, I didn't type in 55. It automatically figured that out for me. So let's come back out of here. So let's zoom back out, and you'll see that you have a window. Not only is my window on my floor plan, but if we pop down here to the bottom and I click here on my rendering, you'll see that my window is also in my rendering too. Remember, I told you before about dynamic renderings that's constantly updating your plan. Every time I make a change in my floor plan, my rendering is automatically updated. I did not have to start a new rendering. It's automatically rendering for me. Now, we've placed a window, and typically at this point, I would go through the room and I'd place lots of windows and doors. Matter of fact, I'm working on a project for Francesca right now where we have a pretty big plan, and I have, I think, 2 huge windows and 3 glass doors in that plan. So we would place those in there, and each time you do that, the room would actually become a little bit brighter because it adds more light sources to the room. We'll talk about lighting a little bit later, though. Right now, to save time, I'm going to jump right into cabinetry. And if you take a look over here, see where it says drag and drop? If I click on the arrow next to drag and drop, this would give me a list of all of the catalogs I have on my computer. You'll notice I have tons of catalogs. Most of these are brand specific, but at the very top is a list of generic catalogs. So if you're not buying directly from a cabinet supplier or a cabinet manufacturer, no worries. We have all the generic catalogs in here that you can work with as well. Framed, frameless, metric, imperial, in inches. Room catalogs with things like furniture and appliances and countertops, decorations, all sorts of things. Matter of fact, the plan I was just working on a moment ago, I went in and I put a pretty nice sized column in the middle of the room and put plaster on it as well. It looks photorealistic when you see it. So lots of shapes in here generic. Anything you can really need to design in these rooms, you can do it generically, or you could always use our brand specific catalogs because 2020 has the largest supply of brand-specific catalogs in the industry. Right now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to choose sample F, which is a framed cabinet line, generic. I'm going to go into base cabinets, just like you would the spec book. I'm going to thumb back the sink bases. I'll go back to my standard one, and then we'll take an SB36, drag and drop that guy right below the window. It's going to give me a preview, and let me enlarge this just a little bit. I'm going to make a couple screen changes. I just downloaded the most recent update from 2020. So there's our preview of our base cabinet. And if I look over here on the right-hand side, we'll click on this, and we'll say, let's go ahead and put a Kohler sink in there. So let's choose that Kohler sink. I like that one. There's my Kohler sink. There's my preview. When I click OK, my cabinet has been placed. Now, you can go through your catalog and do that. For instance, I can go back to categories. I can go down, let's say, base corners. I'm going to go to a 90-degree corner, just a standard cut. I'm going to go get a 36 right. We'll drop that into place. There we go. And I can zoom in and see I have 22.5 inches. To me, that's the slow way to place items. The fast way is just to search for things. So right now, if I wanted a base 21, I could come down to this bar right here and type in B21. It gives me a list of all of the items that meet the B21 criteria. I want a base 21 hinged right, so it hinges away from my sink. We'll slide it down, and there we go. I'll zoom in. I have 1.5 inches for filler. BF3, that's my filler. Drag this over, drop it into place. I'd like to place a DB18. drawer base 18. Grab a drawer base 18, drag, drop it right into place. Move this down just a little bit. Let's put in a wall diagonal 2430. Wall diagonal 2430, glass door, hinged right, drop it right there. Now, you notice how fast that is? So if you know your cabinet line really well, you could just type in the nomenclature and just start to drag and drop. And I could have done that in elevation as well. I did it in a floor plan right now, but I could have opened up an elevation, designed the whole thing in an elevation. Let's take a quick look. We'll come back out of here again. There are our cabinets. You'll see it's placed the cabinets. It's updated my view. I can move in. I can move up. I can tilt this. Now, we're going to change this in a minute. Right now, this is a square raised panel door. Looks like it's some kind of medium maple finish. We're probably not selling a lot of square raised panel doors and maple honey in today's environment. Probably doing a lot of white shakers. We can change that. I'll do that in just a moment. Before I do that, though, let's go back to the cloud. Remember, I told you that all the catalogs from drag and drop are going to be transitioning to the cloud, so you don't have to download anything. You can actually just go in and choose your appliances or your cabinets or everything with the most up-to-date catalogs all the time. If I click on this arrow, we'll scroll back up here and say, I want to have a 30-inch dual fuel range from Decor. It'll bring the Decor catalog up. We will scroll down here and choose this Decor range. There's my preview. I'm going to go ahead and drag this over, and I'm just going to drop it against the wall, slide it on over, just like I did down here. So over here, I dragged and dropped. Over here, I dragged and dropped. And if we take a quick look at this, you'll see that I've added a Decor range. I can tilt it. We can zoom in. I can tilt it again. And you'll notice that the rendering quality of the items in the cloud are much better as well, to the point where I can even read the control pad on the range and see the details on all the burners and such. So we've been placing items, again, from drag and drop. That's where I'm using most of my cabinet catalogs. And then on the right-hand side here, this is where I would choose my appliances today, eventually everything from there. Now, your next question is going to be, all right, John, you just showed us a maple honey cabinet. Can I make it white shaker? Absolutely. Here's how you would do this with your manufacturer's catalogs. You would go to the items tab. Now, this is another area where I want you to write something down. And I want you to write this down because this isn't something that's really going to jump out at you. It's not very obvious to begin with. Okay? So if you want to change your door styles and your finishes in your kitchen, all you need to do is go to the items tab. See the feature called Styles and Pricing over here on the right? That's what I want you to write down. When I change the door style and finishes, go to Items, go to Styles and Pricing. And when you click on Styles and Pricing, it'll say you have a Decor catalog, that's your appliances. The Room catalog, that's your windows, walls, and doors. Sample F, that's my cabinet catalog. That's the one that I want to change. So I'm going to click on Sample F. I'm going to click on Catalog Styles. And watch, I want to change my base door. I'll simply double click on it, and it will take me to what we call our global style and validations field. Now, what's really nice about this type of pricing is that if you're working in a brand-specific catalog, it will make you answer all the appropriate questions so that you get the proper pricing. So if you pick, let's say, a maple shaker door, and it's available in 15 different paints, it'll show you those 15 different paints. But if you picked a hickory shaker door and it's not available in paint, paint won't be an option. So it will validate the catalog. So look for that, especially in your newer catalogs from your manufacturers. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to click on base door upcharge, right? Here's a list of all the doors that we offer. Now, this is, I say we, these are the doors from your manufacturer. This is my generic list. But you could be working with your brand-specific catalog, and you would only see their doors. So if you're working with a custom manufacturer, there could be hundreds of doors listed here. If you're working with an importer, there might be 4 doors here. It all depends on your supplier. I'm going to click on Geneva. It says, what do you want for wall doors? I'm going to click on Geneva. There's my preview. It's kind of a shaker door with a little bit of an inside edge profile to it. There's Geneva. It says, what kind of drawer front do you want? I'm actually going to switch this up a little bit. I'm not going to pick a 5-piece drawer front. I'm going to go with a slab. Then it says, what type of door pulls do you want? You'll notice here that we have Hickory Hardware and Amarok and 2020 generic. So I'll go in here and say my door pulls. I want to go a little bit more transitional. And I'm going to go with, let's say that we pick this one here. There we go. And then it says what type of species you're going to use. Well, this is an important question, and every manufacturer is going to be a little bit different with this one. Some manufacturers only offer a couple wood species. Some might have a dozen wood species. Some will have a category here for paints. Maybe it's Sherwin-Williams, maybe it's Valspar, maybe it's Farrow and Ball or Benjamin Moore, and you'll be able to click and pick from a dozen paints to 500 to 1,000 paints, depending on your manufacturer. So if I wanted to go through in this case, I'm in my generic catalog. I'm actually going to click on just the white here right now. This happens to be thermofoil, but I'm going to click on white. And if I click on submit, here's what I want you to notice. It fills out everything in my list. If I click close, and it looks like I didn't put drawer pulls on, so I'm going to apologize for that. I need to go back and do that. Let's take a quick look, though. You'll see my kitchen has actually changed. It's now a white shaker. This is traditional overlay. I need to put a full overlay in. Remember I told you I didn't change the door pulls? Look at the door pull difference here. I have just the generic drawer pull here, whereas I actually had the drawer pull or door pull that I picked from Hickory Hardware earlier. Okay, so you have the ability to make those types of changes. Now let's back up just a little bit. So you'll see that your kitchen is now white. It's a little bit dark. We're going to change that too. Before we do that though, let me finish on the pricing side. So you have drawn a kitchen, right? You picked your door style by going to items, styles, and pricing. That's where you also picked your finish. Now you want to be able to tell your client how much the kitchen costs. No problem. Once you have picked your door style and finish, you can go to view. And when you go to view, you'll go to, I'm sorry, wrong button. We'll go to presentation, and then we will click on the button called reports. When you click on reports, you'll see a list of items here. One of these is going to be called quote, but there's lots of reports. And I don't have time to show you today because this is just a short presentation or a short meeting today. But one of the reports I use most often is lighting report. I love to use the Lighting Wizard in 2020 because it'll automatically make a lighting plan for LED lighting throughout my room using the Sensio catalog. So I use that a lot. I use the countertop plan a lot, and then I use the quote a lot. So we're going to go ahead and click on quote. When we load this, it's going to ask me for some setup features. That's a screen that you're going to go into the first time you use 2020 because you're going to want to put your company logo in the upper right-hand corner instead of our company logo like you see right here. You might have some information that you do not need that we automatically put on the report, or maybe you need to add more information to it, headers, footers, things like that. You can do that in that previous screen. Now let me explain a little bit about what you're going to see. You'll see a list of cabinets here, and on the right-hand side is the list price, okay? That's list price. Keep in mind, everything is at list price, but you have the ability to put both your cost and your sell multiplier into 2020. So you can literally show your customer what it's going to cost them, but you can see what it costs you, and you can compare the two and figure out how much you're going to make on this too. So all that is part of 2020. So you see we have a wall diagonal 2430, $357. A sink base 36, $480. A DB 18, $509. These will all add up to $2,520, so $2,520. That's your list price, including any hardware and everything else that you've added to that. So that's your report. This report can be printed. It can be emailed. It can be exported into Excel or into a PDF or text format, TSV, CSV, TIFF, RTF, or an HTML in case you wanted to use it with another software you may have. When you're finished with this, you'll click close, and you will go right back. I should be right back. There we go. You'll go right back into your plan. So again, your reports are all found under the presentation tab under reports. So again, remember I asked you before to write this down. Items, that's where you go in and you make your door style selections and your colors. That's styles and pricing. Presentation and reports, that's where you actually create your quote for your customer. Awesome. Now, before we go back into our renderings, I want to show you something else real quick. I want to go into the closet pack. When you're looking at 2020, and right now you're evaluating 2020 and figuring out when are you going to add it to your business. You're going to do it today, you're going to do it next week, you're going to do it the week after that, because you're looking to, just like everybody else in our industry using 2020, you're looking to save time in your design, be more accurate in your design, and at the end of the day, come up with these great renderings that allow you to sell more kitchens and baths. Well, when you're about to purchase 2020 here, when you go online and you purchase, you have the ability to add something called Closet Pack. Let me show you that just for a second. If I'm switch my windows, we're going to go in here. We are going to click on a closet that I already have open. And I'm going to go to the top of the screen. I'm going to give you a preview. And this is what I want you to notice. Now, there's a number of closet companies that have catalogs that work with this. All right, but we have a really cool generic catalog that I want to show you here for a second. This is going to load my closet. So here's my nice closet. You'll see that I have some drawers and shelves on the ends. I have a shoe rack here. I have just plain shelves here with shoes. I have a hanging rail. I have a 2 hanging section. I have all of those here in my rendering. So I can go through and make quick changes, make a quick design. Now here's my goal. If you're working brand specific, that's awesome. You have a list of all the components you need. You can price as well. But a lot of times, especially when you live in areas like I do, we don't have these big grand closets. So when you're designing a closet, you're really just trying to create a really cool rendering so somebody will buy it right away. So your crew who's installing the kitchen and bath can go into the other room, cut some panels up, put it in the closet. It only takes a couple hours. They knock it out, make a couple bucks at it. But you don't have the time to spend all day doing the design on this the way you would have to for a kitchen, right? So if you watch the way I use this, it's about speed and inspiration. That's the key to me. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to draw a box around my existing closet. And once it highlights the existing closet, I am going to click on delete, and I'm going to delete those items. And then I'm going to open up an elevation, because working in elevation works much better for me in closet. When you purchase the Closet Pack, it comes with something called Flexi Catalog. Watch how this works. I'm going to take this section, I'm going to drop this in, and I'm going to go in here and it'll ask me for clearances, what type of closet system do I want. I'm going to say I want to divide this into 6 sections. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to stretch this all the way across and click again. And if we give it a second, it's actually going to set up all the end panels, all the tops and bottoms, all the backs, all the components I need before I start to drop my sections in. So there's my closet. Now, each one of these are divided into equal spaces. Don't worry about that. You can always take each one and make them a different size. So I could take the first section and make it 36 inches if I need to, and it would automatically adjust. Now, there's a couple of different ways that I place items. For instance, sections. I'll go in and place a section. I will go down here and say, you know what? I want to have drawers and shelving in the left section here. So I'll simply click on it. We'll give it a second, and it's going to take this section and add drawers and shelving to it. When my little hourglass goes away, I'm going to take another drawer and shelf section. I'm going to put it on the other side so that it balances. Then what we'll do is we'll go through and make this a long hanging section. Maybe this one will be a double hanging section. So let's say we do a long hanging section here, because I wear suits all the time, so I'm going to have suits in this section. We're going to do a double hanging section here. And again, it might be for my button-down shirts, because I'm going to hang them top and bottom. I might go in here and do some shoe shelving on the right-hand side here. I just drop it in. And what I want you to notice is how fast this is. Once it places these items, I actually have a rendering that I can go look at. As an example of that, let's let the hourglass go away for this one. Let's come back down here again. Let's look at my closet. Here's my closet that I just designed that fast for you. I have 2 units on either side that are the same. I have a long hanging section. I actually have a double hanging section here in the middle. I have nothing here though. Well, let me show you a little bit about shelves that I like to use. And again, this is all standard in your closet program. So if we come down here and say shelves, I'm going to go grab a fixed shelf, let's say. So we'll take a fixed shelf. I'm going to drop that in. You'll notice it sizes it to the opening automatically. So there's my fixed shelf. I could go in and put another fixed shelf in if I wanted to. So we'll slide up. There's my other fixed shelf. I also have the ability to put an adjustable shelf in. And as an example of that, I'm going to drop this to the left because I want to show you something real quick. I want you to notice something. The adjustable shelf and the fixed shelf do not align. Why? They do not align because in real life they won't line up either. They are based on the drillings on these panels. A fixed shelf has a pin in the middle of the shelf. An adjustable shelf sits on top of a pin so that elevates it slightly above the hole. So if I take this, I can actually move this shelf to any section, line it up, drop it into place. Now, 2020 will generate a list of components for this closet. You can take your client over and show them their awesome new closet they're going to get. You've designed this in 3, 4, 5 minutes because we all know in the smaller closets, you're not going to make a lot of money out of those. So you need to design them fast, get somebody to sign on the dotted line and move on to the next project. So I was able to design it fast and it looks awesome so that I can generate that interest or inspiration in purchasing that closet from me. I wanted to show you that because that is now an option in 2020 as well. That's the add-on option called Closet Pack. So when you go online and you're looking at purchasing, whether you're going to do a subscription model or you're going to purchase outright, you'll see an option there for Closet Pack, and that's what that does. Now let's come back over. Let's come back out of here. So let's switch back over to our plan. I have one more thing I want to show you. And I am right on time. I always try to be about 40 to 45 minutes. So I'm going to show you one more item, and then we're going to open it up for questions, and I will check the chat room as well. Now, when we're looking at rendering, so I went right back to the original kitchen that we worked on. So this is Anthony's kitchen. And you may see at the bottom of my screen, not only do I have a floor plan open, but I still have renderings open for 3 different designs at the same time. I work in multiple designs at the same time, so I leave them open all the time. I might not leave 10 or 15 open, but I typically have 2 or 3 different plans working at the same time. Here's something I want to show you. When you are in a perspective, you already know that you can roll the wheel back and forth and kind of walk back and forth in a room. You already know that you can hold the left button down and you can tilt up and look at the lights. You can tilt down to see the ceiling. You can tilt to the left. You can tilt to the right to see the rest of the room. Matter of fact, you can turn 360 degrees, right? So there's your rendering. When you stop, it'll start to re-render. There's a couple of things I want to show you, though, about lighting. At the bottom of the screen in a rendering, there's a little light bulb. Let me give you a couple of tips here. First of all, if you click on that light bulb, there's an option here called sun. I use sunlight all the time. I click on the visible button right here, which makes the sun visible down here at the bottom of my screen. And if I grab hold of the sunburst and start to move it around, watch the shadowing in the room. I can actually adjust and show sunlight coming through the window. Look at that countertop. Look how realistic that countertop is. Looks like Carrera there. If I let it go, and I click on the plan, it'll actually start to re-render, and it'll render it in a higher resolution showing sunlight. There's another feature here under lighting, and this feature is called Scene. This is the second feature that I use all the time in my renderings. The option under Scene called Ambient Light, if I move this all the way to the left, it actually turns off the ambient light in the room. So in this case, I'm really just getting like moonlight coming through the window, and I could turn that off as well. If I go back down to the lighting and I go to ambient and I move it to the right, it makes the room brighter. Now remember the kitchen that I was working on earlier, that little small kitchen with the white shaker cabinets? That room needed to be brighter. So what I probably would have done is simply gone to the light, gone to ambient light, and adjusted that to the right. I made this room a little bit too bright, but I would have adjusted it to the right. So if you click on the light bulb, my 2 favorite features are sunlight and then Scene Ambient Light. There's also an option down here in the lower right-hand corner, looks like a gear. If you click on that gear, this allows you to change the type of rendering. Right now, I'm in a textured rendering. If I click wireframe, it'll make my kitchen wireframe. Now, this is crazy to look at right now, all these lines, but this really is a great way to look at a kitchen or such when you're in elevation mode because it shows shelves. Most people who just want to do black and white outline go to hidden line, and they just have a simple black and white outline of the room. I bounce back and forth myself between hidden line and the texture mode, and there's a bunch of other views in here as well that you can use. Now, There's one more thing, and this is the part that's really, really important. This is probably the most popular way that people present using 2020 today. At the top of your screen, all right, if you follow my cursor to the top left, there's a camera right there. And if you were to click on that camera, it's going to ask you two questions. Number one, it's going to ask you where you want to stand. I typically stand in the middle of the room, okay? So it's going to ask you, where do you want to stand? And number two, it's going to ask you for your email address. And why is that? Well, it is going to take your rendering and create a 360 panoramic image that can be sent to your client's cell phone, to their smartphone, so that they can literally stand in their existing kitchen, their 1977 kitchen, take their phone, turn it sideways, and be able to see their 2018 kitchen on it, and as they turn, the room will turn with them. I want you to write something down for me again. panorama.2020.net/pano. As soon as we're done today, I want you to take your cell phone out, your smartphone. I want you to click on the browser, and I want you to type in panorama.2020.net/pano. This is what you're going to see. You're going to see this screen right here. When you see the screen, I want you to click on 2020 Design Panorama Gallery, and I want you to stand up. All right? I want you to stand up, and then I want you to turn your body to the right with your phone. I want you to turn your body to the left with your phone. I want you to look down at the floor with your phone. I want you to look up at the ceiling with your phone. You'll notice that you can actually turn 360 degrees, and you will love, absolutely love the image that you see there. Now, that's how 2020 users present to their clients. They can actually send the renderings to their client's phone, and their client can see them. They can post it on social media, share with all their friends and family the awesome kitchen that you're about to provide for them, really marketing your company, if you think about it, marketing your company to their friends and family. You have the ability to share that. Everybody has the ability to do that in 2020. You need to be an expert in this. You need to be an expert in creating plans, kitchen, baths, closets. If you click the button that I mentioned before, so you're in a rendering and you click on the 360 panorama button up here at the top, 2020 is the expert in creating 360 panoramas and virtual reality, which I'll show you in a minute. You don't need to be an expert in that. You create this, right? You click that button, send it to the cloud, and then your customer will automatically have it in a 360 panorama. Now, let's take a look at one more thing. I want to mention one more thing to you, and then we're going to open up for questions. At the bottom of your screen, when you're looking at your phone, there will be a pair of goggles down there. So right down here at the bottom, there'll be a pair of goggles. If you click on those goggles, or your client does when they're looking on the phone, it creates a left eye, right eye experience. And what you can do with that is you can take their cell phone and you can slide it into a plastic pair of VR goggles, or you could go out to someplace like Dodo Case and buy goggles with your branding on them. They're cardboard. Slide the phone in there, and your client can have a virtual reality experience for very, very little money. You're creating that automatically in 2020. That's just part of 2020, right? But if you go out and you go to Amazon, buy a couple pairs of these plastic goggles, keep them in your showroom, you can actually show the customer a virtual reality experience of their room. Let me take you to the next step, which is how to buy. You can do that online. You can go to info.2020spaces.com/buy now. It'll actually walk you through, an online purchase, an e-commerce purchase in 2020. You're going to have two options there now. We actually have a new exciting option, which is subscription, which is just a yearly fee. It's not as much up front, but it's a yearly fee that you would pay to have access to 2020. So that's a brand new option as of yesterday online. Again, that's at info.2020spaces.com/buy now. And the last slide I want to show you is training. We do lots of this online type training, but you do have an opportunity for in-person training as well. You can actually go out to 2020spaces.com/training residential to see a schedule of an in-person training near you. Well, we'll go ahead and end here now. Again, our contact information is 2020spaces.com or 866-698-2020. So thank you and have an awesome rest of your day.